Okay, Bruchim Abayim, to our dear Chabura, Kol HaTorah Kula, as we cruise through Torah Shabbal Peh with Rambam in the lead, and we're holding Perek Gimel of Hilchos Avodas Kochavin, and the shir was titled, first of all, Shkoyach Reb Levi Nemirovsky, for the beautiful cover page. Is one allowed to throw a stone at Avodah Zarah? And today we're going to explore, fascinatingly, the various ways that the pagan nations invented different ways of service to their getchkis. And it's important to us because we need to know who's chayiv skila, what is derech avodah, and one is only allowed to explore it in context of knowing the Torah, Ma'aseh Yasun, as a Beis that wants to know, and the like. You're not allowed to take interest even in terms of just exploring the concept. And we're going to jump straight inside, and then afterwards we'll get to a few short stories that I thought worth mentioning. And we're going to begin Perek Gimel Halacha Aleph. Now, anyone that serves, and here we're saying the stars, which is a general example for any other creation. Birtzoinoi, that means he wasn't coerced, he did it from his own free will. And bizadoin, he knew that it was intentional because he knew this is Aser, that denotes shoygig, where he didn't know that this is, sorry about this, well, should have been before, that he didn't know that this was Aser. And he says, if a person did it without Eidim Vasra, there was no one to testify, and he wasn't warned, Chayiv Karas, he is liable for the Isser, for the punishment called Karas. Now, what exactly is Karas? Many opinions. The Pashta, what's known to us is, first of all, he passes away young, and he's cut off from the world to come, as the name indicates. Karas, he gets cut off. There are opinions that the Rambam holds that if he has Maisim Toivim, so then he gets cut off his years, but in that case, he will have Olam Haba. And if he doesn't have Maisim Toivim, so for care, to live long, and he won't have Olam Haba. Barbanel has an opinion also. Many interesting days. But Kochavin, someone that served Avodah Zarah without Eidim Basra is Chayiv Karas. However, V'im Hayusham Eidim, two people testified that they saw Basra, and they warned him. Toich K'dei Dibur, they told him. It's very hard to reach that point. But Toich K'dei Dibur, they told him, listen, what you're doing is you're going to be liable. Skila, Niskal, he gets stoned after the due process that we'll learn in Hilchos Sanhedrin. The whole process that Beis Din goes through. The Abad Bishgaga, he didn't know that this is Aser. Then maybe carbon chatas k'vur. There was a specific carbon that he would bring, a carbon chatas. Now, what is considered serving Avodah Zarah? Halacha Beis, and here to the title of the shir, Harbe Avodas Harbe Kavo Avdei Kochavim L'chol Tzelem B'Tzelem. There's many different forms of service, kivyachol, servicing Avodah Zarah, and for each getchka, they had l'chol tzur from each and to each form, and to each for each statue. This one is not like the other one. Kigoin, for example, the two famous examples, Baal Pa'or, which was the deity of for Moav. Kigoin Pa'or Shavadasa, the way they serve this Baal Pa'or, Shapoiratma, he uncovers himself and relieves himself by this getchka. How wonderful. Umar Kulis. And the second Avodah Zarah called Markulis. Avodah, the way they served it was something serving Mother Earth in a very interesting ritual that they would put two stones, another stone, the Gemara and Sanhedrin describes. And as we'll see, that after they built that, it would be throwing and knocking over the stones, because that would symbolize, somehow signify that they worship the earth. Or Yisakal Milfanav. So if he throws stones, or Yisakal Milfanav, or takes away stones. That is all part of this serving of Avodah Zarah, because taking away stones is preparing for the next person. Many similar examples to this. Tiknul l'shar tzlamin, they have established for different types of forms and different types of idols. Lefichach, and therefore, hapoyer atzma markulis, if you swapped, a person relieved himself by the Avodah Zarah called markulis. Oisha Zarah Kevin, or you threw a stone, but by pa'or, the one that you meant to relieve, pater. Now, until you serve it in the way it is served. Now, this is one unique Isser. How do they serve their deities? And then I'll follow that path, namely, the way they serve, that's the way you'll become chayiv for that unique avodah zarah. We're soon going to see that there's 4 universal ways of serving, because that's supposed to be dedicated only to the Eibishter exclusively. And once someone does this for any form of avodah zarah, then he killed it. And he's getting, he killed it. He's going to be killed. And for this reason, being that every avodah zarah has its own unique way, based needs to know the ways that they serve. You don't serve somebody that served avodas kochavim until you know that this is its unique way of being served. Now, halacha gimel. Agav, just pointing this out, the serving foreign deities is also from the Sheva Mitzvahs Bnei Noach, and a Ben Necher is also killed for it. And not only that, being that it's one of the Sheva Mitzvahs Bnei Noach, this is one of the courts of justice, which is a different one of Sheva Mitzvahs Bnei Noach. They are meant to judge their fellow goyim if they transgress and they serve an idol. Now, that's when Yad Yisrael Tkif. We know in Torah there has been issued a warning before the Oynish. The Torah reminded and said, do not serve them. That's the way in the way they're served. Now, in which case did we say you're only chayiv if you do it like its unique form of service? Is by all getchkas and all different forms that they would swap from one to another, culminating one of the rituals. Chutz, aside from the following form: mimishtachve, someone that bows; v'zayveach, someone that slaughters; or makter, someone that has going up in smoke incense, like ktoides; or menasach, and someone that pours a libation, as they would pour wine and the like. Now, aval oivid ba'achas and agav menasach includes also sprinkling blood. If someone serves one of these 4, regardless of which unique avodah zarah it was, chayiv, he will also be put to death by stoning if he has edim basura. Even though this is not its unique way of being served. Ketzad. Some examples. This about pa'or, he's not in the mood of relieving himself. He took some wine, and as we'll see onward, anything resembling that, any liquid, and he poured it, even if it was denigrating. He poured urine over there. Poured it, that is a form of nisuch, and he's going to be chayiv. Oishe zabach, and lemarkulis, instead of throwing stones, decided to shecht an animal. Chayiv is chayiv. Shenemar, zayveach lolikim yacharam, someone that serves, or someone that shecht, slaughters, to lolikim, the way Rashi teaches on the Torah, in Mishpatim, lo'elikim, to upgetter, that are to other deities, Yachram will be done away with, will be killed. Bilti Lashem Levade, because, and the way the Rambam is going to point out, because these are unique avodas that are done exclusively for the Eibishter, and Memela for any avodah zara, you already need to be held accountable. Zvicha bechlal avodas hoisa. Be'etzem, shechting is one of all the other avodas of the Beis Hamikdash that we do for the Eibishter. So why did the pasuk specify the Lama Yatzas? Why did the Torah take this out of the klal and specify that Zaveach Lolikim Yacharam Dafka Shechting? Loimelcha to teach us Mazvicham Yuchedes, just as Shechting is unique to the Eibishter Sha'oivdi Balashem V'chayev Zaveach Lekelacher Skilala, and therefore anyone that slaughters to any other deity is going to be chayiv skila. Bein hoysa derech avodas bezvicha, bein eina bezvicha, whether this is its form of service, whether it's not. This teaches us, it's a hyper, this teaches us for all other examples of avodas that are unique to the Eibishter, that if you do this for any avodah, this is a universal way. This will apply universally to all avodas kochavim and will be put to death. Now, v'imabad balakel acher, bein shaysa derech avodas, bein bekach, bein she'ena bekach, chayev aleh, regardless if this is the way of serving it. So these are, it's really 3, okay? Because there are 3 of them, which is Zoveach, Shechting, Menasech, pouring a libation, and Mekater, and having incense going up in smoke, or burning things going up in smoke. These 3 are what we learn and apply this Issa to all Avodah Zaros because they're unique to the Eibishter. We'll soon see that Mishtachve, the Rambam now brings a separate pasuk, that this is also universal to all Avodah Zaros. L'kach nemar. Therefore it says, Lo yishtachve l'kel acher. Why does it say do not bow to any other god? L'chayiv al eshtachavoya afilu ein derech avodas bekach. Even if this is not at service, you're still going to be chayiv. V'hu adin lemekater umenasech. The same din will be to a person that has going up in smoke and someone that pours libation. V'zoyrek umenasech ke'echadu. Important that zoyrek, someone that throws something, and menasech pouring, they both fall under the same category. So I mean, it's not if you're pouring certain things, throwing will have the same din as menasech, and for all of Avodas Zaros, it's going to make him chayiv. We're soon going to see that there's a unique characteristic to when one pours, that it sprinkles or it spreads like liquid, and therefore this will exclude throwing certain objects. That even though it's similar to Zayrek, that we'll see in the next sif. Now, Safas Lotzoya. What happens? He fed it shmutz, dung. He poured in front of it a libation, but it was urine, which is denigrating, still chayiv, because these are unique avodas across the board. Shachad lachagav, if he shechted before it a grasshopper, potter, he's potter. That's not the derech avodah. Ellen ken hois avodas bekach, unless this was the unique way of serving this avodah zara. Va'im shachad la behema mechoseres aver, potter. Unless it's a behema that's mechoseres aver, and I want to add with the mefarshim, even though I'm trying to stick just to pshat, so we have, we don't get too technical. We're learning the Rambam. We want to know what the Rambam tells us straightforward. But it could like to point out that mefarshim explain that a behema that's has a psul, a behema that's treifa, the fact that it's not able to be served in front of the Eibishter doesn't make a person potter. Only if it was the type of mechoseres aver that it's usher for us, and also for them it would be not a valid carbon, that makes him potter. Again, what the overriding rule is that if this was its way of service, then it's chayiv, because it's not midin one of these four. Now, if they serve it by throwing a stick, shavar makel b'fonel, if he broke it in front of it, chayiv, and v'ne'aseres, this staff stick has become prohibited to derive any benefit from. Zarak makel b'fonel, he threw it in front of it, chayiv, but at that point ve'eina ne'aseres. Why? So it's true, he's serving it kederech avedasa, and he did something wrong, so he will be liable for skila. But she'ein zrikas makel ke'ein zrikas dam. Throwing a stick is not like zrikas dam. So he's chayiv not midin menasech. He's chayiv only midin derech avedasa. And the nafkamina between them is if you're serving it because that's the way it gets served. So you did something wrong, but that doesn't specifically become aser. If you did menasech, it itself will become aser. So in this case, he threw the stick. It was derech avedasa, so he's chayiv, but the makel doesn't become aser. Shein zikas makel kein zikas dam, because throwing a staff is not similar in any way, shape, or form to sprinkling blood. Sharei hamakel kumay shahu. The stick stays exactly the way it was since it left your hand. But adam mispaz mashing blood, when you sprinkle it, it spreads. Now hamikabel alav echad mikol minei avodas Kochavin belika. Anyone that accepts upon himself any idol as his personal deity, chayiv skila, automatically is chayiv skila. The day is, does he need to say it? Does he need to say he's going to do any avodah? Just conceptually accepting it and then saying it, mefarshim. Now, even if you raised a brick, and this is what the many mefarshim rely on, that the Rambam is indicating that there has to be a mice involved. And he says, "V'amar keliyata, you are my God. You created me, mazel tov." And anything similar to these words, chayiv, he will be liable for being put to death. As we said yesterday by Megadif, no backsies. You can't say, "Oh, that's not what I meant." It's not my God. It's irrelevant. Ela niskal, he gets stoned. Halacha hey. If someone serves idols in its natural way, even if he did it in a derogatory way, as we said earlier, safas lotzoya, chayiv, he will still be chayiv. Ketzad, for example, but before we were saying that if he does one of the 4 types of avodas, regardless of what his intention was and regardless of the material or the liquid that he poured before it, he's going to be chayiv. Now we're applying it to each unique type of avodah zara. So he says, if someone he revealed himself and relieved himself in front of pa'or, but his intention was just to embarrass it. Quite embarrassing to me. Seems to me. Zorak Evan Markulis looks very destructive, and in his mind he threw it being that this is the unique way it's served. Chayiv, he will be chayiv skila. Or maybe carbon al shikigasa, and if it was unintentional, he's going to bring a carbon chatas. Now halacha vav, we're moving on to another one of the list that the Rambam mentioned at the beginning of this whole series, which is a list of isurim, the way they are in Torah. And one of them was, you're not allowed to make tsuras lanoi. You're not even allowed to make nice, great images. And what this is going, so the Rambam is going to define exactly which ones, and I'm not going to get in right now. Halacha l'maisa so much, maybe next year. So the Rambam is now going to zero into what happens if a person serving avodas kochavim, just because. Sorry, that really is relevant a little later. Skip that. Halacha vav is going to discuss a person that wants to serve a certain idol, but not because he believes it has any divine powers, and not because it's a creator of this world or any of the sort. Rather, because he appreciates that type of action. So he serves it out of just sheer love. He's emotional. He appreciates this form, this shape. Because this type of service, it's beautiful for him. Not that he believes this created the world, but he's afraid, he's superstitious. Maybe there's some truth that Shema Torei Aloi, maybe it's going to harm him, just as they all envision and market. They say that this getchke, this idol, will make it better or worse. Now, if he accepted it as a deity, chayiv skila, he is chayiv skila. If he served it in its way of service, very interesting. He didn't consider it a deity. He served one of the 4, Mishtach, Menasach, Mekater, and Zeveach, or Perek Markulis. But his intention wasn't that it has any sort of form of power. He did it out of fear or out of love, just for this act. Potter, he's potter. Obviously, it's also about him. Hamegafef. And now we're going to talk about different actions which express appreciation for an idol, which is also regardless if it's a way of serving this avodah zara. Let's see inside. These are examples. If someone hugged a getchke, he kissed it. If someone sweeps, is in the good old day, they had earthen floors. And when it was dry outside and people were walking, they would pick up the dust. The ear would get dusty. So they had something called ributz. We'll learn about in Hilchas Shabbos. They would spray water, and this would settle the dust. So he's doing it to make the surrounding and environment much more pleasant. Vasach, or he smears it, just like one would smear his body. So this person is going and smearing this getchke. V'amalbish, he dresses it. V'aman il, lashon na'alayim, he puts on shoes. The chol kayetz b'divrei kavod elo, and all these forms of giving honor. Oiver b'loisase. It's not called oiver avodas kochavim. It's not one of the 4 forms. It's not its derech. Rather, he transgresses a loisase, a lav. The Torah prohibited and said, "V'loise of them, do not serve them." Period. Any type of service in the way English translates service, an act of service. And these are all considered part of avodah, and even though it's not the unique avodah zara, it's not. Why does he not get even malchus for anything? It's not specified clearly, even though it's a lav of Torah, but it wasn't taich ois, like the or something that's miyuchad lashem. Like we said, no. Obviously, this is the overriding rule. If this is the way of serving it, by hugging it and the like, basola of that, and he did it again, not me'ava, not me'ira. He did it. That means not because he loves that action or not because he's afraid it may affect him negatively, but doesn't really believe that this is the creator and the deity. he's going to be chayiv if this is the way to serve it. Now, let's get practical for a second. Most people are not doing this because they're not. It's not. A yid doesn't do that. But specifically today, it's important to note there's a Gemara that describes the Chachamim at some point took away the Yitzhahara for Avodah Zarah. Fascinating description how they did it. And they want to do the same thing with the Yitzhahara Varoyes, and then chickens stopped laying eggs, and they figured, and the Chachamim said this is too far. However, it's important to note there was once Amoraim sitting together, and they were discussing the king Menashe. That was Mamish Choyto Machti. Not only he sinned himself, he got others to sin. And they expressed themselves when they started the shir. He said, "Bo v'nadaber b'Menashe chaverinu." Let's discuss Menashe, our friend. And it was not befitting for Melech Yisrael. He wasn't their equal, and even in Torah. So it was a dream that one of them had, the Tana, the Amoyra, and the Menashe asked him. The king came to Menashe and asked him, "How do you cut the challah? When you cut challah, how do you cut it? You cut it. It says from Mishikrim, when the pass is from where it becomes hardened. Is it on the side where Ponea? What's the face of the challah? The part that's stuck to the oven. In those days, you still have it in Bukharim. They have these pitot, or the Yemenites still bake that way. They stick the challah to the oven. I ever saw it's like a furnace. There's cold, there's burning flame from the bottom, and it's heating the walls. They would stick it to the wall, and Rediyas Apas, the Gemara says, it's not a malacha, it's a chachma, it's a umnus, it's a skill. So, the part that's stuck to the wall, that part also gets ready and crusty and good. So, which one? And it says from Ponea, that's where you start cutting on Shabbos, from its royal part. Is that from the crust facing the flames or the crust facing the back? So he didn't know to answer. So Bekitzer, we're not an equal. After establishing that, Menashe, the king, pointed out that it can line and besser. So Menashe tells him, you should know that if you were in our times, you would pick up your robe. It shouldn't get stuck in thorns, and that's how quick you would run to Avodah Zarah. So once there was a real Yetzirah for this stuff. Now Allah Chazayin is going to be a little more practical. Yosha lekoitz beragle. He has a thorn in his foot, and he happens to be the Fnei Avodas Kochavin. And you want the quickest way possible, and he wants to bend down and just take out. But if he bends down, it's going to seem like he is bowing. Zakter Rambam lo yeshuach. Do not bend over, v'yitlanu, and take it out. Looks like you're bowing. Rather, as we'll see, sit down. But we'll see that in a second. He brings another example. Or nispazuloi mois b'fana punk shalom. What a mazel. All his money, his bag ripped, all his items fell on the floor, his money fell on the floor. Lo yoshuach, don't bow and pick them up that way like a bow. Rather, for the same reason, it looks like you're bowing. Ela yeshev, sit down, and then sitting, pick up. Like we're just coming from Shavuos. The tznius of Rus was when she was cutting, when she was harvesting the wheat. We make tzirchitim by Boaz's fields. She was tznuah. She kneeled down, or she sat down, and then she cut. Okay. So, halacha ches, and this goes back to the tzuras. Partzufos hamekalchos mayim. You have this in Prospect Park. You have these sprinklers, and they come out of these lion faces. This is the remnants we have of the Roman culture that were the Greek to the Romans that we're still in that Galus and Galus Edom, and they have these either a lion face and it's sprinkling out. So partzufos hamekalchos mayim, spritzing out water. B'fnei Avodas Kochavin, it's beautiful and spraying it out before Avodas Kochavin. Lo yanich piv al piyam v'yishteh, or befrat if this face is a face resembling the Avodas Kochavin. Don't place your mouth on this opening and drink. It seems like you're kissing Avodas Kochavin. Now, halacha tes, which means the Rambam's pointing out that even if your intentions are yira ava, it's still aser. Don't do that. And this is without even getting into the Rambam. It's important to note that the Rambam will introduce an iser mitzad one inyan and make it sound like anything else is mutter, and then later on you'll hear another modifier that 1 second, midin maris ayin, there's still going to be a problem there. The Rambam introduces slowly, and that's here kana makom loymar. Very important that the Rambam is a goin in seder, without whatever else we know about the Rambam. And every Perek is unique, is a standalone. And therefore, if you missed the Perek yesterday, the Perek of today is pivotal. Join today. Learn these halachas, and you're connecting to Dvar Avaya, irrespective of the day before. And so, Zakta Rambam, if a person makes a statue, an idol for himself, even if he didn't do it with his actual hands, and he didn't come to serving it, he gets lashes. And the l'cha is extra, batsam, as we'll soon see. It's also for you, but sorry. Do not create any graven images, any statues for yourself. That means by your hand. And therefore, even if it's not for yourself, and you're not planning to serve it for a guy, you're doing it still. Sorry. If it's done for you, let me start again. Halacha test. Okay, we're starting again. Halacha test. If someone created or formed a statue for himself, we'll start again. Halacha test. If someone made a getchka, an idol for himself, he didn't make it with his own hands. Means he commissioned someone to do it. And he never came to bow to it or came to serve it. He still gets malchus. It should not be made for you. And if he also is not planning to serve it, but he's making it for others, even if he's not making it for another year, he's doing it for a guy. Again, he gets lashes. You should not make. And if he does it with his own hand, which is the second answer, and he did it for himself, for him to serve, he transgresses two, and therefore he gets malchus twice. One for making it, and one for having it commissioned for himself. Halacha Yud. Also, one is not allowed to make images for beauty, even though it's not an idol. And we're going to discuss a little later. And I want to next year discuss the halacha l'maisa shabazah, what it means today that you're not allowed to have an embossed image. Kids make out of Play-Doh and the like that hardens. Even let's see, we'll discuss that. Or there are dolls. So you're not allowed to, even though it's not a getchka. Now I'm going to make these shapes for beauty, and we'll see it's specifically the whole form of a person. What does it mean? Do not make with me. These various forms of silver and gold, made out of silver and gold. And the reason why they're called not because they specifically need to be made out of materials of silver and gold. These are forms of things that a person does. The ornaments. They beautify themselves with it. So whatever it is, you want is not allowed to make. Why? It's not Avodas Kochavin. Period. No one should even think you're doing it as a deity and as Avodas Kochavim. When the Torah prohibited to make form different shapes and sculptures for beauty, it's only the shape of a person. Regardless of the material you're using. Not out of wood, seed, not out of plaster, evan, not out of stone. The entire three-dimensional shape of a person, no three dimensions. This is providing that it sticks out. Kigoin, hatzir, hatzir is hatzir, the various pictures, I guess, that are sticking out. Vachir is moldings. Shebetraklin in various hallways. Traklin could be big halls. If he did form this, like he gets malchus. If it was engraved, that means it went deep inward instead of being embossed and sticking outward. Or it's just colors. With the colors, he made a shape. He dyed it. Like as done on various planks of wood, tabliyos and tabliyos, no planks, or that they weave or into different whether it's mats or rugs. Harel mutaris, it is mutter. Now, this will lead us to the next halacha, and again, I do want to discuss and dedicate some time for the halacha l'mais. Is a very important. My name is Menachem Mendel Doiv. I'm named after a person, a very special yid. His name was Menachem Mendel Doiv Schechter. He was in Kiryat Mochkin. He was a Rav, and we don't have any pictures of him. There's a picture of my grandparents' wedding. He was my grandmother's father, she Yusevitz's father-in-law, and he covered his face. There were those that held one is not allowed to take pictures, and that was considered a tzura. And we'll discuss the halacha shebezeh. Now, this leads us to halacha yud aleph. Tabas sheyesh ala chosim. What happens if a person has a signet ring, and it's there to stamp and to shed to make a face or whatever his emblem was to make. But in this case, he had a face on it. That's the way they once upon a time would send letters, right? They had a seal on the letter. How do you know that this letter was not broken and this letter was not read? You saw the seal; it wasn't broken, so they put a chunk of wax or lame and stamp into it. And if anyone wanted to open the letter, they rolled it open, crack. You know this letter was broken into. So how did they make the tzura on this fresh wax to make sure that someone didn't just take it off and put a new clump of wax? So they would, if you look at the mashka battle from the Benedictine, you'll see they have it has sometimes like a splattered piece of plastic. They make it look similar to that signet ring. It shows like this is a special edition. So he had a ring that had sticking out. So there's two forms of rings. There's rings sometimes that on your end, it's sticking out. The image that you're gonna imprint is sticking out, like we have on all our coins, and therefore when you're going to press it into Play-Doh, what's going to happen is the image is going to come on the opposite side but as an indent. So in such a case, what you're holding is the problem, because we said only if it's boilet, surah boiletus. The ring you're not allowed to have in your house, because the ring is like it's sticking out. It's a tzura, it's a tzura of adam, but you're allowed to use it, because what you're creating on the opposite side is just going to be imprinted, which we said doesn't have that inyan of tzura boiletus. So, for example, if the ring doesn't belong to you and you're going to the bank and the bank wants you to sign, or they want you to sign off on it, you're allowed to press with it, but it's not allowed to belong to you. But the other way around, what happens if on the ring it's engraved inside, but when you press it, the image on the wax or on the clay is going to be sticking out, then you're allowed to possess and wear such a ring, but you're not allowed to stamp with it, because what you're going to stamp is going to cause that type of sort. Let's see inside. Tabas sheyesh ala chosim. A signet ring, a ring that has on it a sign on the other side. Shutzuras adam, which is the shape of a person. If on your ring it's sticking out, you're not allowed to keep it in your possession. But however, if it comes to shove, you're allowed to stamp with it. If it was the other way around, on your ring it's engraved and it's inward imprinted, then you're allowed to keep it in your house, because it's not tzura boletas. However, because on what you're signing is going to be sticking out. Also, lots of dmus chamal. You're not allowed to make an image of, even though he said it's only unique to a person, also chama ulavana, a sun and a moon, Kochavin, mazalis, the stars and the galaxies, umalachim and angels, shenemar, loy sasun iti. Do not make images that are with me. Loy sasun kidmus shamashay. So he explains you shouldn't, I think it's from Gemara, loy sasun oisi. That's how they learned that Tzuras Adam specifically, because oisi is the Eibishter is Kivyachol, Yitzelan Alakim Baras Adam, so that teaches us that it's Dafke Tzuras Adam. And Loisasun Iti teaches us, Loisasun Kidmus Shamasha, do not make the images of those that serve me. I'm Shabbos Lafanim B'marim, that those that serve me in the heavens. Va'afila Aluach, even on a board. Tzuras HaBehemis. However, the shape, the mold of Behemois, different animals, Ushar Nefesh Chaya Chutz Min Adam, all other animals aside from the person, B'tzuras HaIlonos, and different trees or the shaim and grasses. Okay, it's been mutar latzuraisam. You're allowed to make, as we have sticking out on lions, on some Aron Kodesh, and eagles, mutter. But even if it is sticking out. Stay tuned, Be'ezus Hashem, to the next year, which is going to begin, Be'ezus Hashem, at 8:30. We're going to discuss the halacha l'maisa of today's shir in regards to different images, as well as some special stories about Reb Gershon Edelstein that we just had his passing yesterday. Looking forward, Yishikoyach to all Bnei Chabura for being with us and cruising through Kol Torah Kula with the Rambam, one Perek a day. Looking forward.